Well, hello, church. It's Pastor Jeremy coming to you from the parsonage with another daily devotion. Today we continue our tour of the stained glass windows at Street United Methodist Church as we learn a little more about the life of the apostle called Andrew. Previously, we learned that Andrew was the very first follower of Jesus, the one who called his brother Simon Peter to come and be a disciple of Jesus. The Gospels also tell us that Andrew played a key role in one of the most important moments in the ministry of Jesus. There are only a handful of stories that are told in all four Gospels. One of these beloved and essential stories is the story in which Jesus feeds a great crowd. This story wasn't just a favorite of the Gospel writers. It's also our favorite story at Street United Methodist Church. Through the years, I've discovered that when I ask Court Streeters which story of Jesus they love the best, more than half of our Court Street Church family says that this is their favorite story of Jesus. In John's Gospel, the story begins when Jesus decides to test the disciples. He looks out over a great crowd and he asks the disciples, "Where can we find enough bread to feed so many people?" Well, the disciple called Philip calculated how much bread they would need, and he piped up, "Jesus, we couldn't buy that much food even with 6 months' wages." And then that's when Andrew stepped in. And while the other disciples were adding up all the food they didn't have, Andrew quietly asked around to find out what they did have. When he'd done a survey, he said to Jesus, "Here we have a young boy with 5 loaves and 2 fish." Even Andrew seemed skeptical that such a small amount of food would make a dent in the crowd's hunger. But Jesus was pleased. He had the disciples sit everybody down, and then he blessed the bread and passed it around. And somehow those loaves and that little bit of fish were enough to feed all of those thousands of people. And there are a lot of days when I find myself sounding like Philip. I spend so much time thinking about all the things, all the tools, all the time, all the bread that I don't have. Andrew reminds us that we don't accomplish anything by wasting our energy counting up what we don't have. Our job, our task as disciples is to see what is in front of us, what we have in our hands, what God has placed on our tables and in our pockets, and then to offer those things to Jesus, believing that in his hands it will somehow be enough. In the Andrew window, we see 5 loaves and 2 fish, a reminder that we already have everything we need to do the work that God has called us to do. Would you pray with me? God of the loaves and the fishes, you have given us everything we need. Help us to see what is in our hands and on our table, that we might step forward boldly to serve your people. Through Christ, who multiplies all of our gifts. Amen. Well, thank you for spending a little time with us today. You can find a new devotion here each day at noon. Until we meet again, keep washing your hands, keep wearing your mask, and do not be afraid.